What's going on, everybody? You're in the Beat Sessions. I am your host, Mitchell Weary. We're looking at the brand new record from Jimbo Mathus and Andrew Bird entitled These 13, which came out on March 5th. I'm really excited to talk about this record. I'm not that familiar with Jimbo Mathus, but I've been a fan of Andrew Bird for about 15 years. Incredible multi-instrumentalist. And if you're not familiar with him, the first woman I ever dated was an incredible whistler. And the moment that I picked up on the fact that she had this skill, she told me about him. Started listening to the guy. She took me to a concert, and I was just blown away. Not by just his incredible ability as a musician and just going back and forth, but he's an amazing violin player. That's his instrument of choice on this particular record. But the guy has an incredible ability to whistle. I love the way he incorporates it into his music. It's really a unique feature that makes this guy very special to me. I know a lot of you are probably big fans of him for that reason. The story between these two is pretty interesting as well, actually. They met, it's like some type of Renaissance festival back in 1994 that Andrew Bird was working at. He was cosplaying, I guess, as a fiddle player. Mathus, noticed his talents while he was performing. And the rest is history. They teamed up. And many of you, I feel kind of silly for not realizing who Jimbo Mathus was. But Jimbo Mathus and his wife, whom he's now divorced from, they formed Squirrel Nut Zippers and recruited Andrew Bird to play violin in that band. So if you were born roughly around 1990 or a little bit before, you're probably old enough to remember that big old silly swing movement in the 1990s. Very interesting time for music. There was just a big response to, I think, people being tired of grunge. And so there was this explosion of all these different genres, the swing thing being one. But, they did all right for the better part of a decade, honestly. But they haven't reunited until this record. It's really cool to see the two of them back together. And they keep it simple. This really is just a lovely, stripped-down folk record. It really just draws on this record sounds like it could have been made 100 years ago. These songs just have that incredible quality. Love Mathus's voice and Bird's voices paired together. Mathus has more of this kind of raw, earthy kind of tone in his voice, where Bird's is more refined. Obviously, with the whistling thing, he certainly has a more eloquent voice, I'll say. So the two of them harmonizing together really just makes for some incredible music on this record. And musically, you have Mathus on his guitar. Andrew Bird is on the violin most of the times. He picks up an accordion to do kind of like a in-between track on the record. And there's a couple things, the end track I'll talk about in a second. But you get Bird pretty much on his violin. Frankly, it's like two cats pouring a whiskey and having a conversation, the way the violin and the guitar just move back and forth and interact with each other. And not just like a sloppy, drunken conversation. Think of something more refined. I'll even think of like Thomas More and Raphael in Utopia, and the Socratic discourse that they have. That's the level of sophistication that's going on with the musical interplay between these two guys, and it's just so special to listen to. It's really what makes this album such an incredible piece of art. Some criticisms that I've read that have been leveled against the album, and I disagree with them, honestly. I've read some people say that they don't like the modernity of the lyrical content. I feel like people are arguing that the genre of music that is coming out of these guys harkens back to this old aesthetic, and that the lyrical content should be there. And in the folk tradition, these guys are telling stories about characters that are somewhat downtrodden, haven't had necessarily maybe the best go in life. It's kind of what a lot of music comes out of, blues and folk. And we come together with music because I've talked about it before, but there's just this universal sort of language that draws all of us in, and it trumps any type of stupid convention that we can throw out there to squash it. It just music transcends, and this album is transcendental. And I love that these two guys were able to take a style that a lot of people just consider and think of as old, and really give it a good contemporary feel. And it's not just the lyrical content, it's the production on this record. It's super clean. It sounds amazing. Again, some argue that folk should be, it should have this like kind of like raw lo-fi element to it. But, props to these guys for making a record that I think really may appeal to a lot of people that aren't necessarily into folk music. And like I said, this might be the record that you didn't realize that you needed to listen to. I didn't know that I did. Like I said, I saw Andrew Bird. It made me really excited. And I've listened to this thing 3 times now today. And I'm loving it more and more with every listen. Poor Lost Souls is the leadoff track. That's one of the songs that received criticism for contemporary lyrical content. It's about LA lifestyle. It's slightly more different than, I guess, Tool Anima. There's definitely more of an empathy for the people that choose to reside in the LA area. Dig Up the Hatchet as well makes reference to cell phones. So, again, I like the modern feel of this record. They are telling stories that are evocative of the folk tradition, but that resonate with modern listeners, which I think is really cool. I will say Bell Witch is an amazing track to check out. Stonewall 1863 is a lovely, slow, elegant song about a war-weary veteran who's just ready to move on and ready to pass. Very, very sad, tragic song, but so well done. And then the last song, Three White Horses and a Golden Chain, is remarkable. And I think it's slightly different than the majority of the tracks in that there's more instrumentation. It has more of a modern kind of, I guess, indie feel to it. But the harmonizing between Mathus and Bird is absolutely incredible. You get some of that signature whistling from Bird on that track, as well as the lead single, Sweet Oblivion. So there's not a whole lot of that there, but there's just enough to, I guess, satiate that appetite. But what you get musically will almost make you forget that Andrew Bird even had this entire skill set. This album is just so damn good. Vinyl, please, obviously, on this. I hope you enjoy checking this out. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and we will see you next time on the Beat Sessions.